Good morning. This webinar offers closed captioning. To enable closed captioning, click on the live transcript button on the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred method. Welcome to the Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection webinar. Please note, any website or email that I mentioned will be posted in the chat box. For those seeking business license assistance, you can visit the Small Business Center here at City Hall or call 312-74-GO-BIZ. Also, business license can be applied for or renewed online at chicagobusinessdirect.org. If you are a part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program, you get credit for joining this webinar by sending an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. To learn more about this program, please visit chicago.gov/business education. This webinar is being recorded and will be available at youtube.com/Chicago BACP. We encourage attendees to ask questions. Please use the chat box to send your questions. There will be a Q&A session at the end of this presentation. Today's webinar is entitled Valet Parking Operator Licensing and Best Practices, presented by the Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. At this time, I will now turn this webinar over to Sergeant Amanda for us to begin. Hi, are you guys able to hear me?
Hi, Stella. Yes, I'm able to hear you.
Okay, so we can go ahead and begin. I've already given the introduction.
Okay, I think if you want to go to the next slide, I think Lawrence will go first, but if you want to switch slides. So quickly, I'll just do a quick introduction. My name is Miguel Campos. I'm a supervisor with Business Compliance and Enforcement for BACP. So today's agenda, Lauren Smith will go over licensing requirements and application requirements. I'll go over business compliance and the type of investigations that we conduct. And then finally, Sergeant Amanda Vanek from the 18th District will go over general safety tips for both valet operators and guests that might be using services at establishments across the city. Okay, I'll now turn things over to Lauren Smith.
Lawrence, if you're talking, we definitely cannot hear you.
Okay, I see that Lawrence has left the recording, so I will begin covering this section, and once he joins us back in, he can take over. So valet parking operator basics. A valet parking operator is anyone who employs one or more attendants to provide valet parking service, or who contracts valet service to any business establishment. A valet parking service is when an attendant takes temporary custody of a patron's motor vehicle to park, store, and retrieve the vehicle for the patron's convenience. Currently, the city is issuing valet licenses for the term of 1 year. That term or license term runs from July 1st through June 30th of the following year. A valet license costs $600 per year, and each loading zone or area would require its own individual license, and valet licenses are non-transferable. We can switch to the next slide, Stella. Then I see that Lawrence has rejoined, so I will let him take over and the application requirement screen. Lawrence, if you want to unmute yourself, we cannot hear you.
All right, yeah, I was having a computer issue, so I'm here now. I can hear you now. Couldn't hear you before. So did you start on this slide, or do I start from the top?
No, I did the first slide, so you can take this slide in its entirety.
Okay, so we're gonna go over application requirements. And this is for any business license. We first established the legal entity, and then we established the business information from the appropriate agencies, the Illinois Department of Revenue, Secretary of State, Federal, the EIN number from the IRS. We established that those are all legit. For valet specifically, you must have a certificate of insurance for the location being served. You're required a minimum of 1 million per occurrence for public liability, 1 million per occurrence for property damage, and 1 million per occurrence for garage keepers legal liability. Proof of all loading zones at least 25 feet in length immediately adjacent to the premises. If on street, then a CDOT loading zone permit is required along with the loading zone signage. Lastly, you need the $600 application fee, but also proof of off-street parking spaces equal in number to about 15% of the occupancy of the associated business. We can go to the next screen. Operating requirements, you must display an 18 by 24 inch valet parking license sign issued by BACP attached to the loading zone pole during the hours of operation. Any parking or vehicle compliance violations while in custody of the valet operator is the sole responsibility of the valet operator. All right, also, you must place the sign on the dashboard of each patron vehicle, a 8.5 by 11 inch sign stating that this vehicle is parked by the particular valet parking operator for the customer of the business that's licensed, when they say business establishment. Also, attendants must wear clothing with a conspicuously placed insignia of the valet parking operator. Next slide. All right, so operating requirements. Attendants must provide to each customer a receipt containing the name, address, and the telephone number of the valet operator. A statement that the company has required liability insurance, the charge for the valet service, the time and date the valet operator took custody of the vehicle, and the license plate number. The attendant must stamp and return the receipt to the patron upon retrieving the car. Attendants must have a valid current driver's license on their person when in the patron's vehicle. A valet operator in the central business district may only operate during the establishment's operating hours, plus a half an hour before the opening time, and a half an hour after the closing, or until all the vehicles have been retrieved. Next slide. All right, so how do you apply? You can apply in person in the Small Business Center in City Hall. We're 121 North LaSalle. We're room 800. Application intake hours are from 8:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Monday through Friday. And for more information, you can call the general line at 312-74-GO-BIZ. Better known as 744-6249. I'll let Miguel take over from here.
Okay, good morning once again. So I am going to cover what our enforcement teams would be out there looking for. Some of this information is going to be repetitive. It's information that Lawrence has covered or I covered in the initial slide. We just want to drive home specific points. So first of all, BACP responds to any complaints filed by citizens by calling 311 or a SHI 311 app or we might get referrals from sister agencies, so aldermanic offices, other valet operators, the police department, things of that sort. So we respond to complaints and we also conduct unannounced proactive investigations. As a reminder to issues that Lawrence has brought up before, all patrons' vehicles must be parked in legal off-street or legal on-street sites. So the legal off-street would be the locations where you, when you apply on your application, state that you are renting parking spots from a public garage or a private property owner, the number of spots that you have, which again, have to equal at minimum 15% of the capacity for the establishment that you're serving. Or legal on-street sites, which would be any metered site or any non-residential or residentially marked zone. As a reminder, you cannot park vehicles on main thoroughfares that are designated as snow routes. And then once again, any fines for parking or compliance violations that are incurred by the vehicle while in the custody of the valet operator are the responsibility of the valet parking operator. So if you decide to park a patron's car in front of a fire hydrant, a bus stop, too close to a crosswalk, don't pay a parking meter, any tickets that either a third-party agency or the city would issue to that vehicle would be the responsibility of the valet parking operator. As stated in the sign that you get when you first get your license, the valet parking sign must contain the name of the operator and the rate for services for that day. This is the valet parking sign that gets attached to the loading zone poles that are attached in front or adjacent to the business you're servicing. The dashboard signage, which once again must include the name of the valet operator and the name of the business that's being provided service. So Miguel's Valet Service Parking on behalf of Miguel's Restaurant. Your employees must wear clothing with an insignia or name of the valet operator in a conspicuous location and must be in possession of a valid driver's license if they are moving individuals' vehicles around, so a patron's vehicle. Again, receipt requirements must contain the contact information for the operator, the charge for services, the date and time of services, beginning and ending, and then the license plate identifying that specific vehicle. We previously mentioned the central business district. I'm going to give you a rough description of what it is. So from Division to Chicago, LaSalle to the lake, and then from Chicago to Roosevelt, from Halsted to the lake. So those hours of operations of only being able to service half an hour before a business opens or half an hour after they close would fall within that central business district. Before I turn things over to Sergeant Vanek, as stated by Stella at the beginning, if you have any questions, feel free to type them into the Q&A session or the chat function, and we'll address them in the Q&A session. If there are any questions that we may not be able to answer today, we're going to ask you to send an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org, and we'll get back to you with an answer shortly thereafter. Stella, if you can switch slides. And I'll now turn things over to Sergeant Vanek.
Thank you, Miguel. My name is Sergeant Amanda Vanek, and I'm the Business Liaison Sergeant in the 18th District, which is just north of the river. I'm going to go over some safety tips. Valet operators should advise all clients not to leave wallets, cash, or any valuables in their vehicles. Valet should ensure that vehicles are relocated and returned to clients as quickly as possible to limit the amount of time the vehicles are left unattended. Valet should ensure keys and/or key fobs are never left inside the vehicle. All valet keys and/or the key fobs should be stored in a locked area and/or in a secured lockbox. If utilizing a lockbox in a public area, please ensure it is securely fastened or bolted to a fixed object. In case of an emergency, always call 911. And I would also encourage you to contact your local police district to discuss specific safety concerns relative to your locations. Thank you. Next slide.
And then finally, I just want to point everyone to resources that are made available by the City of Chicago Department of Business Affairs and Consumer Protection. So we have this handy one-page FAQ that has definitions, license requirements, that informs you where what to do once you're ready to apply. This PDF is available for you guys to download at www.chicago.gov/BACP. And once again, if there are any questions that we are unable to answer, anything that might be too complicated or nuanced, if you can please email bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. The email address is on your screen at the moment. We'll get back to you shortly thereafter. Any questions that have been typed in to the chat function, we will answer at this moment. And then Stella will read those off if any have been typed.
It looked like we have some questions. Give me 1 second. How long is the process? Come on, stop. How long is the process to obtain a license to become a valet operator?
In most cases, it could take about, I want to say 7 days. It really depends. The Department of Finance is involved. They do a debt check. So after we complete the application, there's a debt check associated when you make a payment. On average, we see maybe 7-10 days before they complete the debt check, and then we can issue the license.
Next question. What are the qualifications to become a valet parking business?
You have to have, we established a legal entity, but most importantly, you have to have the liability insurance. The general liability is like 1 million. Garage keeper liability is 1 million. The City of Chicago must be named as the additional insured. And then there must be a valid loading zone for that business. So we'll check with the Department of Transportation to see if the loading zone is up to date. So the loading zone is the responsibility of the business that hires the valet operator. So for instance, if it was like RPM Steakhouse, then they would have to get the loading zone. The loading zone has to be in good standing. And then, we can move forward and issue the license. There's also a parking agreement, as stated in the slides earlier. You got to have 15% of the occupancy. So if it's a restaurant with liquor, we're going to check the occupancy, and then you got to have 15% of the parking.
When it comes to vehicle keys, would you suggest that we have a lockbox inside or outside of the establishment?
I can answer that. Well, we prefer lock boxes to be out of the view of the public, limiting the chance that somebody could possibly steal the keys. So if that's feasible, we would prefer to have it on the inside in a private setting. However, we know that's not always feasible. So we are requesting that you secure it as well as possible and to always keep it locked.
Next question. In the event that a patron pulls up to a restaurant or a nightclub in a motorcycle, does the requirements change? Because this person wants to valet park their motorcycle. Or should I have someone on my staff who is licensed to operate a motorcycle?
I would say that, yeah, all of the requirements would still be in effect, but as stated, I think a common sense approach would be to ensure that someone who has driven a motorcycle or is trained to ride a motorcycle or has a proper license to ride the motorcycle handle that interaction. And then obviously, if you do not have anyone on your staff member who can functionally operate the motorcycle, then you should inform the customer rather than damaging their personal vehicle. So it's going to depend on the efficiency or knowledge of operating a motorcycle that your staff members may have.
Can I come to City Hall and ask questions regarding this license? Or do you prefer that I send an email?
Go ahead, Lawrence.
Yeah, in person would be best. We prefer.
Do I need to make an appointment?
You cannot make an appointment right now. We're not doing appointments. It's first come, first serve.
We don't have too many questions. I guess that's a good thing. Yeah. So there's no more questions, you guys. You have any final words that you want to offer our attendees today?
I'd just like to thank everyone that showed up to view the webinar. And as stated by Stella at the beginning, a recording of this will be posted in our department YouTube page. And again, if you have any questions, you can send an email, or as Lawrence stated, go to our small business center on the 8th floor at 121 North LaSalle between 8:30 and 4:30 Monday through Friday.
Thank you. If you are a part of the BACP Entrepreneur Certificate Program and would like to receive credit for today's webinar, please send an email to bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. Again, that's bacpoutreach@cityofchicago.org. To learn more about our upcoming webinars, please visit chicago.gov/business education. Thanks to all of our panelists, and thank you to all of our attendees, and have a great day.